Okay, so this chapter is about small businesses and entrepreneurship, and we'll talk about how to manage a small business, and then we'll talk about a little bit, what does it mean to be an entrepreneur? So what's a small business? These numbers are a little outdated because they're from the textbook, which was published in 2018, right? But probably not too much has changed, right? So a small business is it's independently owned and operated, right? It's a small business that has, it can have multiple owners, not just one owner, but it's independently owned. In other words, there are no public shareholders, right? It's not a publicly traded company. It's not a dominant force in its field. What does that mean? It is not a dominant force in its field. Because it's small, it doesn't matter what it does. It's not going to impact the entire industry it operates in. An example of a dominant force in its field is Google. Google is a huge business, and their main income comes from search, right? Advertising. And if Google changes something, they are going to change the entire industry, right? They dominate the industry.
Yeah. I understand it's not a dominant force in its field, but is it possible for a business of that scale to really make a lot of money, even if it's
Can a small business make a lot of money even though it's not a dominant force in its field? It's kind of related. Yeah, a lot of money is relative, right? A lot of money, is it 50 billion a year you want to profit? Or 5 million for you as an individually owned business as profit? So a lot of money is a relative term, right? A small business is not going to make money like Google. Impossible, right? You can't be that large and be a small business. But again, a lot of money is relative. Maybe an individual is happy making 5 or 10 million a year. That's still considered a small business, right? Yeah. In general, it has fewer than 500 employees. That's a lot of employees, so that's still considered a small business, right? In general, that's rule of thumb, right? Has an annual revenue of less than 7 million. Okay, so the revenue has to be less than 7 million usually. They might have changed that number a little bit. And retail industries, actually. There are other industries, right? But a lot of actually small businesses do operate in retail industries. Small shops, and then in the, food industry, restaurants. Small businesses and economy. Small businesses are very important for our economy because of these reasons. Again, these numbers are outdated, but they're probably still pretty similar. The trend is probably similar, right? But in the United States, small businesses generate 64% of net new jobs, right? In other words, the new people that are being hired, 64% are being hired by small businesses, right? There might be a large company that hires 500 people in 1 year, but there are thousands of small businesses that hire 1 or 2 people per year. So you get the point, right? That's why there's more people work for small businesses than large corporations. They create nearly 1/2 of US GDP. What does GDP stand for again? Somebody tell me. Aaron. Gross domestic product. So everything that's produced within that country, 1/2 of that is produced by small business. Over 1/2 is produced by small businesses, right? Exports about 1/3 of all US goods and services. So everything that's sent to other countries, about 1/3 comes from small businesses, and represents the second largest economy in the world. If you collected all the small businesses together and added everything up, added all the GDP up, and could represent 1/3 of the second largest economy. I'd have to see the numbers. I don't know if that's still true, by the way, but you get the idea. It's huge, right? Why else are small businesses good for our economy and for people in general, right? They foster innovation. How do small businesses foster innovation, and why? Isn't all the innovation done in big companies? Yes, Ty.
Don't they provide inputs for certain products?
They provide inputs for certain products or parts or pieces and things like that, that can be innovative. But why else? Yes, Kevin.
I'm speaking as a programmer
Okay,
and in the tech field, of course. Uh, Smaller businesses like startups, when there are new products, so there's a new programming language, a new technology. Well, oftentimes the bigger companies they don't introduce this new code or new technology into their product. Now, because some small businesses they have smaller users, and they usually run tests with these people, with these users, and to kind of really come to a conclusion if this is working or not.
so
In a way, it drives innovation.
so the initial, the innovation and the testing and things like that on a small scale is done by small businesses. That's to prove it, you say.
Yes,
A
ma'am.
new code or something different to do, or even a new app that is created by a small business, sometimes
I
by
know, I
an
know.
individual, right? And then, let me just repeat it. And then, once that's proven and it's on a small scale, then large companies will adopt that, or they might even buy the small business, right?
Yeah, correct. And also because on a smaller scale, a technology it's got like potential to go big. It's easy to reproduce errors. It's easy to resolve errors. For example, a company that's as big as Slack. Yesterday, I ran into an error because my agents were trying to set up something, and I ran into an error that's not even public. And I had a conversation with one of the employees, and she told me, this is a problem that engineers are trying to resolve. And so in a same
And
way,
it's a large company, they
it's a
can't
large
resolve
company.
it.
So like the error message is confusing.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
not direct.
Yeah.
But if it's tested on a smaller scale, it's easy to kind of find bugs.
To find the
And so-
bugs and to solve them too, because
Yes,
you don't
ma'am.
have to go on a large scale and company-wide and things like that, right? So basically, things are easier done and on a small scale, in technology and in other areas as well, right? Because whenever something starts, like a baby, when it's born, it's tiny and then it grows big, right? Just like a business. A lot of businesses and innovation start small. And the other thing that's happening is, besides, small businesses contributing to the success of large businesses by being innovative and creating inventing new procedures, or how to make things, or create parts and so forth, or codes, software codes. A lot of times, the large businesses then buy the small businesses. When we look at companies like Google, what does Google own besides search? A big successful company that all of you use, YouTube. YouTube was not invented by Google. YouTube was a separate company. It started as a small business, and then it got large enough and attractive enough, and Google bought YouTube. They did not start YouTube, right? Facebook or Meta, who do they own? What's that? They own WhatsApp. Was WhatsApp created by Facebook? No. Instagram, was Instagram created by Facebook? No. And the biggest, probably, Instagram is probably, I don't know, don't quote me on that, but they're quite significant revenue, because also Instagram is used by younger people. Facebook is kind of like getting really outdated, and so they have to come up with innovative things to attract other businesses, right? Snapchat hasn't been bought yet, right? Snapchat is still individually owned, I think. Was very successful, and I think they had a huge offer, and they said no.
Sorry.
Kevin, go ahead quickly.
Snapchat, yes, it's not being bought, but it's gone public.
It's gone public. Okay, I didn't follow it.
Facebook, they tried to buy.
They did,
tried
but they
to
said
buy,
no.
Just like they tried to buy Twitter, because they're trying to
Yes.
start a monopoly.
Yeah, who bought Twitter?
And I'd like to talk about Google, if that's okay.
Yes, talk about Google.
Search is very big for Google, but another big product that Google has is Google Cloud and Google
Oh, yes.
Workspace. And these are really
Cloud space, cloud computing is huge, yes. I mean, I use their cloud. I use the paid version, right? And I use their email hosting service and everything. They're huge. Those are the things that we don't necessarily see as consumers directly. It's like Amazon. Amazon has great retail revenue and everything, but a huge part of Amazon's revenue comes from Amazon Web Services, which is their version of cloud services. So, but anyway, getting back to small businesses, a lot of those innovative things are happening within small businesses, even sometimes individuals that come up with an idea, start and develop it into something attractive that now the market is accepting, and now the big companies come and say, we want you, right? And you know what? A lot of times entrepreneurs say, sure, go ahead, make me an offer, and if it's good enough, they'll sell. Everything is for sale. Everything in the world is for sale. I mean, you can, right, almost, right? So for the right price. And then they go up to their next ideas. Anyway, they also help consumers to provide product and services that large companies will not provide. A lot of times small businesses go after niche markets. In other words, markets that are not that large and might not be attractive for large companies, because large companies just want to mass produce, right? Let's talk about things like retail, for example. So a small business might go after a very small market. What kind of retail market can you think about that is not as large, that not a product not everybody would buy? That maybe there are some small businesses that provide this product or service that large companies aren't interested in. Let's think. Let's be creative. Yes, Celeste.
Small companies tend to like target custom products, and like larger companies don't really do that. Like on my like Instagram and stuff, I'll get like pop-ups for like, oh, custom water bottles, custom notebooks, custom shirts, and it's like usually from smaller companies.
Usually smaller, yes. You know, a lot of times customized products come from small businesses because they take the time and they can charge more, but there are less customers that are going to buy those products. Yeah, that's a good example. Yeah. You know, another thing might be if you're looking, you know, maybe there's a company that is selling extra large men's shoes that are like size 18 or something like that. I don't know if there's some, there could be a foot that big, but let's say there is, but there are not many people that will buy that size shoe, right? So large companies aren't going to put their efforts into producing these types of shoes. They just want to mass produce, and the average size is from like 8 to 14 or whatever it might be, right? But the small company will put their resources into a niche market because they will have less competition. They will not compete with the large companies by producing something like that, but they will have a smaller market. Products tend to be also more expensive, right? But because there's nobody else that sells that, then that person that needs that size 18 shoe will go to that small businesses and buy from there. Small business and the workforce, we did say they create about 64% of each new job of jobs each year. Employ many who do not fit a traditional corporate structure. Not everybody is made out to work in a large corporation. Some people prefer to work in a small business, and they do provide opportunities for women and minorities. I have to say, large businesses do that as well. So, you know, think of an ethnic restaurant. They might prefer to hire somebody who has that same ethnic background to work in that restaurant. So there could be more opportunities there. But it doesn't mean that large companies don't or can't do the same things. Right? Oops, I think I skipped one. Small business contributions. Oh, okay, we did talk about innovation that help bigger companies supply product and services and help consumers, and by supplying product and services to them like that large companies cannot or are not willing to, like the examples with the large shoes, right? Okay. Reasons to start a small business. So why do people start small businesses? I'm just going to peek ahead real quick to make sure I don't talk ahead of myself like I just did. So yeah, okay, I won't. So opportunity and new innovation, new ideas, and the need to bring new businesses. So, you know, people have new ideas. We always think everything in the world has already been invented. There's nothing else to invent. Sometimes we might think that. That's not like that at all. I thought that when I was your age. And, oh boy, all the changes that have happened since I was your age. When you are my age, you're going to look back and say, boy, was I naive to think we were really high tech, right? not, 20 years from now, you're gonna say we're really not high tech. Kevin,
I'm so sorry.
you're very talkative today. Go ahead.
Again, tech is something I'm very passionate about.
You are a tech guy, right? Yeah.
Okay, so we might think we're very high tech, but people who are in the tech field know that we're really not.
We're not that high
No, we're
tech.
not really that high tech. Matter of fact, as you already know, I moved out here 8 months ago.
Mhm.
And before I came, I would think that because this is basically like the Bay Area, it's like
Silicon
it's-
Valley,
yeah,
man,
so
yeah.
tech of the like the tech hub of the world.
Mhm.
And I came and I cannot believe how much errors I see on several websites and applications.
Oh, yes.
And I
Yeah.
go, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
It's really surprising.
High tech again, it's relative. To you, it might not be high tech. It might be so like messy and everything. To somebody else, it might be like, wow, look at that. It's all relative in a way based on your experiences and your knowledge,
Well,
right?
I'm thinking the broad, like, very broad overview, because you said when you were younger, you thought this is high tech.
Yeah.
But to be really honest, it's not irrespective of your field or how you see it. It's
Yeah,
not-
that's true. Yeah, yeah. And you know, the other thing is the thing with Silicon Valley is, yeah, we're supposed to be the best, the most high tech and this and that. We're not. We're not. Look at our infrastructure. Look at our roads, for example. Horrible. Have you gone down 680? Although I think they fixed it, or Highway 87 in South San Jose? Horrible. Probably bad ones here too. 101, it's like a mess, but you know, the other tech infrastructure, Wi-Fi and things like that. You know, in other parts of the world, you have much better Wi-Fi, much better connection. In London, you get Wi-Fi anywhere. You walk around, even in the subway, you can connect to Wi-Fi all the way underground.
Yeah, also South Korea.
South Korea too, right? Very, very high tech, right? Compared to here, the technology infrastructure, right? This is quite messy here, right? Yes.
You know, when I moved 2.5 years ago, I think you guys only started doing the chip cards with your bank cards. South Africa has been doing that for like 3 years, and that's saying something. And your banking systems are way, way behind. Like when I think of my online banking system back home, it's phenomenal. It's like way ahead. That to me was crazy.
Perfect. Like I'm from Nigeria, right? I just came out here. And the products you guys have. Okay, the other day I went to Wells Fargo because it wasn't working. Wells Fargo.
Yes.
It's really old. So what she's saying, I agree with her. Like
It's- yeah.
even third world country like Nigeria.
Yes,
better
it works
banking
better.
system and kind of.
Yes, I think that the banking system, yes, it's a little bit lagging behind a little bit also, again, being in different countries in Europe, it's some of them are way ahead. There's also no more use of cash. And in England and London especially, people don't even take cash anymore. I lived there for 3 months. I took out maybe 400 pounds of cash and brought 200 pounds back. Because I didn't need to use it. The only place I used it is the produce store on the street on my way home from work. Because they had really, really good figs for a pound. Really cheap too, yeah. Yes, you were gonna say something else?
Yeah. Can I share my experience?
Yes, please share your experience.
Because I grew up in China, but I have been living in South Korea for 2 years.
Okay.
It was 2016, like 8 years ago.
Yes,
7 years ago.
yes.
No
And
matter.
you lived there.
So I first 2013. Sorry. So my
Okay.
first time being to US, it was 2016.
Yes,
So like 7 years ago. So I'm moving here this country before. I'm from South Korea. So I think about America is most powerful country, right? So I think maybe everything, whatever transportation, internet, everything is much better than South Korea. But when I'm moving here, sometimes I started like 7 years ago, I use a Samsung Pay. It's similar like Apple Pay. They say, I'm sorry, we don't take this.
oh, yeah,
And like transportation, everything,
it's
it's
not,
totally different to Hollywood movie.
yes, it's not what people think from in other parts of the
Yeah.
world, yeah. And you know, I come from overseas too, so, you know, people always think America is #1, they are all advanced and everything. It's not like that at all. go to other countries, and I know a lot of you are from other countries or have been to other countries. Much more advanced sometimes. One more thing on the topic, Erin, and then.
To be fair, on the infrastructure, America is one of the biggest land space countries in the world.
Yeah.
It's not really a fair comparison when you think of.
It's not, yeah. Which is a good point. We're so huge, 300 million people. It's so difficult to implement something versus in a little country like Norway or something like that with 5 million people. It's the same problem with the healthcare system, right? We have a big problem with our healthcare system, but it's such a big country. And then we have all the separate states and everything is separate and everybody has their own rules and things like that. So it's a little more difficult to implement, but you know, why is it not right in Silicon Valley at least? Right? It's a small area. Anyway, let's go on. So opportunities and innovation, right, brings business idea. Control, more control of business decisions. Do not want to work for someone else. A lot of people start their own business because they're like, okay, I'm tired of answering to somebody. I'm tired of not knowing if I'm going to get laid off or not. And maybe you've been laid off a few times. I've been laid off 3 times in my life from companies. I was part of big layoffs, right? It's really not nice. It's not good at all, but that happens. I'm still alive and doing well, but anyway, people say, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm going to start my own business, right? Of course, there's a lot of other stuff that comes with starting your own business. You're not just going to switch and say, okay, I'm going to quit this job and start my own business. Sometimes people start their own business and then they don't realize how much work it takes to start your own business. How many hours you work. At least when you were working in corporate, you had an 8-hour workday, you went home and you relaxed. When you have your own business, you are never off. You go home, you're still thinking about your business. You still maybe do stuff for your business. You go to sleep, you think about your business. You dream about your business. You wake up, the first thing you think is about your business, right? And then you go to your business. So 24 hours, especially in the beginning stages. But people that are passionate will do it. And we've seen a lot of success. We see a lot of successful small businesses. And small business doesn't mean you have to become as big as Facebook or anything like that. It can be very rewarding for your entire life and maybe your children's life if you have a successful business that you can pass on, right? So you don't have to say, yeah, not a lot of people are going to be interested. As long as you have enough buyers to make a profit enough that you expect out of it, and that is sustainable over time, right? And as long as you continue, when you have a business, you have to continue innovating. And I'm not even talking about technology. Let's talk about a restaurant. You start a restaurant, maybe you start some kind of new type of fusion food. You're mixing Korean with Mediterranean food, let's say, right? Come up with a new menu and everybody was like, wow, this is really great. You can sustain that maybe for a couple of years, maybe it'll be trendy. And then all of a sudden something else, somebody else does something else. People go there. So you constantly have to innovate, right? Maybe you're gonna now do something, make your food more healthy because people are looking for more healthy things. Or maybe you're going to include vegan menus, or you constantly have to change what you're offering because people change and what people want, people's tastes and preferences change, right? Financial independence, again, a lot of hard work. A lot of people start a small business and that the first few years they make less money than they would have made if they had stayed with a company. But they're willing to take that risk. It's not like you're going to start a business and the day you open, you're going to make money. First of all, you have to recover the money that you invested in it anyway. Schedule flexibility, looking for better work-life balance. As I mentioned already, you're not really going to have that work-life balance first few years because you're constantly working and thinking about your business. But, eventually, if you grow it enough where you have employees and you have maybe it's a family business and maybe one of your family members does the management and because you're making more money, you can have more people on board and share responsibilities, right? But in the beginning, don't expect to have a lot of free time. Right? Unemployment, sometimes people get laid off and they start a small business, right? When my ex-husband and I, we kind of both got laid off at the same time, right? But I was going to stay home anyway because I had a baby, but then I got laid off and then he was working for the same company. And, he did start working for another company and then got laid off from there too because everybody was laying off at the time. And then we decided we're gonna start a business instead of him looking for a job. And we did, and we borrowed money to start a business. We depleted our savings accounts. We used our credit cards, which is really a big, big problem because of high interest rates. We borrowed more money from banks. We borrowed an equity line against our house so we could put more money in the business. Eventually it made money and we were able to pay the debt and everything, right? But took a long time. Yeah. So anyway, questions about that? Yes, Kevin.
Okay.
Comment, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. It's a story. I like it.
A story, yes. Can you talk a little louder because so the recorded,
Yeah.
the recording will
Yeah,
catch that?
Absolutely. So it's I'm sorry guys, if I'm talking a lot. It's a subject I'm really passionate about. Now this story begins 5 years ago. So 5 years ago, I started an agency. I wanted to start a web design agency. But the problem is, I thought I could do it, and I realized I did not have the funding or the experience. So I failed. Then I decided I was going to become a freelancer in order to have the experience. Now, the thing with that is, I had weeks where I worked 80 hours a week and 60 hours a week, and I still do that today.
Mhm.
But guess what? Well, it's been 5 years, and it's just been 6 months since we officially launched the company, the agency. We registered it, and the reason for that is because there's a lot that has to like come in. You need the talent, you need the skill, you need the experience, you need the funding, you need process. Now, something I'd like to talk about is one of the reasons why, at least me, the reason why I decided to start my own company is I want to add to those reasons people start small business. Culture, personal culture and value, For example, I have had the honor, the opportunity to work with top companies. I've worked with Microsoft and as an independent contractor. Now, something I've found is that a lot of companies, they lack, I would say, common culture
Yes.
and respect for people's time. I would really like to say that, because then you have companies where you're working, you're trying to get your job done, and then you get an email, you have to be in this meeting. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so how about you just make like a Loom video and send to like a Slack channel and have everyone watch in
Yeah.
their own time?
Yeah.
So,
Respect time. They
Thank
don't
you,
respect
thank
time,
you.
yes.
and sometimes you have like the CEO say, okay, we need to have a meeting, it's gonna take 30 minutes, and then it takes an hour.
Yes.
These things, they kind of, as an independent contractor, I will tell you, I handle a lot of projects. So the CEO wasting 5 minutes of my time, I don't appreciate it,
Yes.
because I probably have another meeting with another person.
Yes.
So personal, like culture and time. And so this is,
You want to start a company where you're also going to infuse your own values and beliefs, and you're not going to make the same mistakes where large companies, they don't respect people's time, they don't really necessarily appreciate you and things like that. Another reason, you want to do your own thing and infuse your own values.
I'm so sorry.
Yes.
This one is, I think it's important.
One more
It's,
thing and then we gotta go.
One more thing, yes. So, the way you the way you affect things in the company. If you're working for like Apple, decisions that you take, the work you do, you don't really see the effects
The
like
impact.
that, the impact.
Mhm.
But if you work for a small company,
You will
well,
see the impact.
if you solve a solution, you can see a smile on a client's face.
Yeah.
That makes you.
Well, thank you for sharing your experience, and you can see he's done it. He's started a company, and all these different moving parts that are, talent and Process is very important. You have to develop a process that works for what you're doing. And, you know, you have to have experience, you have to have talent. And your one person's talent might not be enough to be successful. And getting all the moving pieces together. So 5 years, you finally registered the company and you're making money, right? Hopefully.
Yes.
But you know, it takes time. And you know, when you're young, you have more time. You know, it's okay to also realize you're doing things wrong. Oh, I can't really start a company because I don't have experience. I'm going to work as a freelancer to get experience. And maybe nobody hires you as a freelancer now because nobody knows you. So now you're going to go, okay, I'm going to work for a year for this company and end up getting a job anyway. It really helps if you have experience before you start a company, right? In that field also, that helps even more. It doesn't necessarily, it's not a prescribed thing. There are people that have been successful, of course, and can be, but it helps if you have experience and if you have business knowledge too. That really helps. That was one of the things with my ex-husband. I had the business knowledge and he was the techie, right? He had technology knowledge and we sounded like the perfect fit, but we didn't get along business-wise, yeah. Anyway, let's go on to the next slide. We want to go through this. So impact of technology on small businesses. Sometimes it's entirely newly created technology and new business opportunities that, or they can look at new technologies and do something with that technology and start a new business. We have this whole thing of AI now, which actually has been around for a while, but now all of a sudden it's available to the public. You know, there are going to be businesses created around that, around the new technology, right? Impact of social media. Social media had a huge impact on businesses, and a lot of small businesses have been created. Look at all the YouTubers that we have. Those are all small businesses, by the way. YouTubers are independently owned businesses. That opportunity didn't exist before YouTube. People making money because they are YouTubers or they have channels on YouTube. You don't even have to be live yourself on YouTube. There are other things you can create on YouTube by using material that is not copyrighted, that you can use to create channels, right? Lots of business opportunities through that, yeah. What is an entrepreneur? Now, we did talk a little bit about that, but an entrepreneur is more than just starting a small business. It's coming up with new ideas, innovation, inventions, right? You know, something that hasn't been done before, or maybe it doesn't necessarily even be something completely that hasn't been done before, but you can take two different things that haven't been merged before to create something. So, what do you think some of the traits our entrepreneurs possess? Personality traits. Yes.
Strong
Celeste.
communication skills.
Strong communication skills. Communication skills are quite important because especially at the beginning, when you don't really have the staff to build your communication and marketing department, you all have to do it yourself, right? Yes. What else is an important trait? You have to be ambitious, driven, right? Yes. Which, if you're ambitious and driven, that makes you what? Passionate, yes, and self-motivated, right? You're passionate and self-motivated because you have this ambition. You want to achieve something. If you're not passionate about the business that you want to start, you're not likely to be really successful because you're not going to work hard at it. And you also have to self-motivate yourself because nobody is paying you for performance. As a matter of fact, as we just found out, the first several years, sometimes you don't get paid. You don't make any money. A business doesn't necessarily make money, right? It's not profitable. So you have to be really, really self-motivated. What else? Yes, quick.
Yeah, you have to be a leader.
Leader, you have to be.
Sorry, because when you're a leader, if you're a leader takes risks. And entrepreneurship is all about risk.
It's more risk than leader, right? Because yeah, it's the more important. You have to take a risk. I mean, not a risk. You have to have. You cannot be risk averse. You have to be willing to take risk. You have to be willing to accept that you lose it all, that you work 3 years on this and it will not work. That risk is there. There's no guarantee that it's going to work, right? But if you do the work and the legwork, the research, the market research, and work on developing products that the market is more likely to accept, then the risk of losing or not being successful becomes smaller. If it's still going to not be successful, at least you will find out more in the beginning because you have done the research. What happens is entrepreneurs, they fall in love with their ideas. They love it and they think everybody else is going to love it, but they're not, right? Just because you love it doesn't mean the market loves it. So you really, really got to be willing to take the risk and do the work. But willing to take risk is probably one of the most important traits, right? A lot of people have ideas. We dream about things, we think about things, we use something and we're like, wouldn't it be great if I had something like this? The difference is that one with the entrepreneurial traits and the one who's driven will actually do something with that. Everybody else will just say one day, oh, I thought about that years ago. Yeah. So what? You didn't do anything. Doesn't matter if you thought about it. So did other people. But what matters is the one that does something with it. Just quickly, franchising is one other opportunity to start a new business. Franchises are companies, a lot of fast food companies are franchises, McDonald's, Burger King, Taco Bell, things like that. So instead of if you want to open a food business, instead of creating your own from scratch, you can buy a franchise. You can own a McDonald's. Because McDonald's and all the other franchises as well have a prescribed operations model. They already have a known brand name. They have the menu. They have everything exactly written out how things have to be done. And you don't have to spend money on marketing because that McDonald's does that for you, right? So you open your McDonald's, but what you do have to do is you have to give up money. From every sale you make, they get something. So here, just quickly, the advantages and disadvantages of a franchise system. So buying a McDonald's versus opening your other Lydia's hamburger joints, for example, right? Versus McDonald's. So McDonald's has a proven system of operation. It works. The equipment is the right one. The process of doing things works. The whole entire operation system has been proven. So you don't have to try things and reinvent things, right? Strength in numbers, right? Because there are so many, and it's everybody knows McDonald's, right? While they are kind of internal competitors, maybe a McDonald's that's too close to you could be a competitor, but otherwise they're not, because the more they are, the more business they're going to get, right? Training is part of the deal, right? Making marketing support is huge, right? They do one Super Bowl ad and all McDonald's in the country benefit from it. Market research is provided. You start negotiating in terms of the location too. McDonald's will not just let you open anywhere. They want you to pick a location that is likely to succeed, that is likely to get a lot of business. Some disadvantages: lack of complete control. You don't have control. You can't just put something new on the menu because you had a great idea or because customers said, it would be great if you had this. You can't. You have to use McDonald's menu, whatever they say. Startup and ongoing costs can be overwhelming. It's very expensive. You probably need at least $500,000 to start a McDonald's, depending on the location. It's not cheap to start one. Part of that is, by the way, the franchise fee, the flat fee that you pay up front to McDonald's. Probably something like 50 or 75,000. I'm not sure what it exactly is. It's quite high for McDonald's. Workload is not less with a franchise. You still have to work really hard. Opening hours are the same. You got to manage your staff and all that, right? Competition and cannibalizing can occur within the franchise. If there's a McDonald's that's too close, you might be competing with them. Or maybe there wasn't a McDonald's too close, but now there's a new franchise 3 blocks down the road. This is one of the things when you do a franchise, if you ever get into a franchise, one of the things that should be in the franchise agreement is that they will not open another franchise within a certain radius. So they're to compete with you, right? And sometimes that can be part of the agreement. Individual problems can become group problems. So Jack in the Box years ago had something where people died from eating their hamburgers. There was some contamination in the meat. So one Jack in the Box had that problem, and all Jacks in the Boxes suffered because it became national news. All right, and then, you can also buy an existing business or start from scratch. Buying an existing business has similar advantages that a franchise can have, right? But there are other questions you have to ask. I think I might have a slide. Oh, no, I don't. Let's just talk about it. So pros, again, if there's a system that works. Cons is you really might not know what you're actually buying. You really, really have to investigate the business thoroughly before you decide to buy it. Questions to ask. The number one question I would ask, if there's a business for sale, what would you ask? You're looking for a certain business and you see one for sale. That is a type of business you're looking for and in the price range that you had in mind. What would be the first question or one of the first questions you would ask? Yes, Ty.
Does it have debt?
Does it have debt? Yeah. And because you might be buying the debt too, right? Depending on the contractual agreement. What else? Yes.
If it's a technology company, I'd like to look at their codes.
Oh, yeah. If it's a tech company, you want to check their codes, right? If their coding is involved. But what else? Big question before you even look into their code. Why are they selling? Why are you selling the business? If it's so great and if you're making money, why are you selling it? Right? Sometimes it's somebody just wants to retire and their kids don't want to take over. Right? You guys are entrepreneurs, I can see that. Yeah. Debt, why are they selling? How much money are they making? You got to scrutinize their accounting records, things like that, right? So here are some of the things. It's called due diligence, the process of investigating a business when you are interested in buying it. Why is the business for sale? What do customers say? Or look at the social media account or in general, the hashtag of that business, right? Are there opportunities for growth? How much time does the current owner put into the business? Who is the competition, right? And of course, what type of technology do they have that makes them more competitive? If it's a tech business, especially. Things you should do, you should get an independent valuation of inventory and equipment. A lot of times businesses are valued based on their assets. So they look at how much inventory and equipment they have, or sometimes real estate can be part of that, right? The assets, how much are they worth? But that's not all they value. A big part of the valuation of a business is the sales they have, right? How much revenue do they get? Have an accountant to review the statements. Have a lawyer analyze any documents, property leases, employment contracts, debts, things like that, right? Debts are very important. You gotta say, typically you will not buy the debts, right? When you buy a business. You will buy the business and whatever money they get, they can pay off their debts with that. Talk to suppliers to see if they will continue supplying. Right? If you're a restaurant and you depend on a supplier that gives you the best king salmon in the area, are they going to continue giving it to you after the owner of the business changes, right? Check for lingering or hazardous waste problems, any environmental issues. They become your responsibility. Or are there any lawsuits against the business? Also. When you buy a business, you buy any legal problems too. If there are any lawsuits or any things that could become lawsuits, just because ownership change doesn't mean the business can say, oh, I didn't own it then, right? Especially if it's independently owned, not a, not an LLC. If it's not an LLC is different. You get one more question.
Yes, final.
Because this is all being recorded,
It's
right?
not a real question, just something I want to
Comments,
add.
yeah, quickly.
So have an accountant review the financial statement. An accountant is really crucial.
Yes.
And especially not just an accountant, a forensics accountant. My dad is a forensics accountant.
Okay,
He studied that in school. So he taught me how, it's really
What to
important
look
to
for.
have an accountant to look at, so you don't get into tax trouble and all
Yes.
that.
yeah, accountant is very, very important, and most companies do hire their external accountants because they're not experts in it, right? Yeah. All right, why do businesses fail? Accumulation of too much debt, they borrow too much money, they can't pay their bills anymore. Inadequate management, people have great ideas and innovative and things like that, but they just don't know how to manage. Poor planning. maybe they didn't really have a business plan, or at least a kind of small business plan. Unanticipated personal sacrifices. They didn't know how many hours they're gonna put into work. Forget about vacation for the next 2 years when you start a business. You can't go on vacation. You're lucky if you can get a weekend getaway. If you have a restaurant, you can't even do that. All right, business plan is something important. These are just components. We're not going to go over this. There is a chapter also this week that I'm not going to lecture about. That's about the business plan. You'll read more about that. You know, you have the beginning is usually the company information. What does the company stand for? What's the current status? Have we started? How long have we been in operation? The history is there. There is a history to the company, and then the management team. Kind of the introduction. This is who we are, what we stand for, what we do, and where we are in our journey. Really, really important part. This is my favorite part, is the marketing plan, right? I love marketing. But you know, you have to do a market analysis and a competitor analysis. Look at the market. What is the market looking for? Does your product fit into that market? Well, that market is that market likely to accept your product? And then look at the competition. What does the competition do? What can I do different? What can I do better than the competition? Right? Marketing sets pricing. They have to set pricing, and we will talk about that in the marketing chapter, but you know, they can't just set pricing saying, we want to make this much money, so we have to charge this much. No, they have to set pricing. They have to look at what people, well, they have to look at cost. How much does it cost us to make this product or service? How much is the competition charging? How much is the market willing to pay? Right? What can I do different that I can charge more maybe? Or am I going to compete on price? What kind of pricing strategy am I going to implement? We will cover that in the marketing chapter. Distribution, how am I going to get my products to the customer? And promotion, brand development. All the ads, commercials, and social media accounts and things that you want to do to get the word, or Google AdWords, whatever you might want to use to get the message out there. Operational planning, your staffing, people that you need to hire, research and development. If you are manufacturing, you have to have a good plan, good operations plan, right? IT plan. Even if you're not a tech company, you need an IT plan. Every company needs to have IT, right? Financial planning, current financing, funding needed. How have you funded the company so far? How much more money do you need? Financial history, if you have a history, right? And financial forecast. What do you think it's going to look like? And you usually come up with a best case scenario, worst case scenario, and most likely scenario when you come up with pro forma or really made up financial statements, right? You make them up based on your research. Valuation, what's the company worth? And then risk analysis, evaluate your risk. And what is your risk management plan and contingency plans if things don't work out? All right, there's some help for small businesses, free help. Small Business Administration, every city or every geographic area has one that you can reach, right? In simple driving distance. SCORE is a volunteer organization of retired executives, right? They're free. Other entrepreneurship organizations listed here, or national business incubator associations. If you're starting a business, use those resources, right? They're very useful. I'm going to stop the recording now.